Hey everyone, quick question. Are you wearing a mask or are you doing social distancing or something else to prevent the spread of this disease? Let me know in the comments down below here before we get started. I played basketball in high school and I was pretty good. Yeah, right. Okay, not like NBA level good or anything, but I was decent. I was the scrappy player that was usually diving around on the ground trying to get loose balls and honestly being pretty reckless with my body. My nickname in high school was actually El Pez, which is the fish in Spanish, because I looked like a fish flopping out of water because I was always diving on the ground. And in one game, I dove for this loose ball and a large fella got tripped up and he landed directly on my leg and it hurt pretty bad. In the coming weeks, when I played in games and practices, I tried a lot of different things to make my leg feel better. You know, I iced it, I went to the trainer for exercises and for wraps, I took Tylenol for the pain, I tried to baby it when I was running, but nothing really made my leg feel better because it turns out when I went to the doctor and got an x-ray, my leg was broken. Oh, snap. Yeah, literally. See, all of the things that I was trying to do to make my leg feel better helped a little bit, but they were never really gonna fix my leg because I wasn't dealing with the root cause of the issue. So when we take a look at these diseases and pandemics and we ask ourselves, what's the right solution here? Is it something like wearing masks and social distancing? Is it shutting down businesses and the economy? Is it more tests, more ventilators? Is it vaccines or some other type of medicine? As we're looking for the right solution, we look at those things, but in all reality, all of those things are just band-aid fixes to the symptoms of just this pandemic. Now, I'm not arguing that those things aren't potentially needed now that we already have a pandemic, but none of those are going to address the root cause of the pandemic and therefore won't prevent future pandemics. In this video, we're gonna talk about what the potential root cause of these pandemics are and these diseases and potentially what part of the solution could be. Also, unfortunately, we're gonna talk about a few new pandemics that are on the horizon. And at the end of this video, we're gonna talk about something else that unfortunately is probably gonna be worse than all of these pandemics anyways. Man, seriously, can this year get any worse? First, what's causing these pandemics? Well, the CDC says that 6 out of every 10 infectious diseases are zoonotic diseases. And zoonotic diseases are illnesses that can be spread between humans and animals. The coronavirus, the seasonal flu, H1N1, aka swine flu, multiple strains of bird flus, MERS, SARS, Ebola, the Spanish flu, E. coli, mad cow disease, and others are all thought to have come from animals based on the best available data we have. Now, to trace the exact origin of these diseases and pandemics, as you can imagine, is apparently really difficult, like harder than Where's Waldo difficult. Not that hard, I'm right here. I need friends. And it usually takes years and years, sometimes even over decades of research. And even then, we might not ever really know what happened and where these diseases originated from or how they began to spread. So we're really using science to take the best guess possible, not only to know where current and past pandemics came from, but also where future pandemics are being generated. This brings me to a couple of pieces of really unfortunate news because it looks like in addition to coronavirus, our next pandemic is already knocking at our door. The CDC just announced that they've begun to take action against a new G4 swine flu that's been spreading amongst pigs since 2016. And researchers say that this new swine flu has all of the hallmarks of being highly adapted and able to infect humans, therefore making it a potential pandemic concern. And that's not the only one. There's another one that was mentioned at the beginning of this year that was another strain of the H5N1 avian flu that was coming out of China. The farm in question had almost 8,000 chickens and 4,500 of the chickens at the time had already died from the contagion. Luckily, it looks like that one is less likely to be able to transmit to humans, but it really looks like we're just only a few unlucky moments away from our next pandemic. Why is this happening? Well, a scientific paper that was released in 2006, and I'll link in the description down below, pointed to CAFOs, which are factory farms, and it had this to say. Recent outbreaks in Asia have shown that the transmission of infectious agents can arise from small farms raising poultry in proximity to domiciles and other animals. However, because CAFOs tend to concentrate large numbers of animals close together, they facilitate rapid transmission and mixing of viruses. Other doctors and scientists have been warning us about this for decades. Even Dr. Greger back in 2008 delivered a speech in Washington, D.C., and he said the two greatest threats facing humanity, according to the United Nations, are climate change and emerging infectious disease, particularly pandemic influenza. He discussed zoonotic diseases and also pointed to factory farms and their unsanitary conditions and how the animals are kept, and he said, These intensive systems represent the most profound alteration of the human-animal relationship in 10,000 years, and it's no surprise they are breeding grounds for disease. A handful of other scientists and campaigners also warned us about this in an open letter in The Independent. And that letter stated, "Across the globe, animals are kept in horrific conditions in factory farms and wildlife markets. These settings provide a fertile environment for the transmission of viruses between different species and humans." And the letter also stated that ending the exploitation of animals is one of the biggest actions humankind can take to protect itself against future pandemics. So it seems that widespread veganism could really be a great part of the potential solution to prevent future pandemics. And at the very least, we should be eliminating CAFOs, these factory farms, and these wildlife markets. But because over 90% of the animals that we consume come from these CAFOs, it would take a drastic reduction in animal consumption around the planet. And the best case scenario, again, would be us being completely vegan. But that isn't the end of the story, because there's something else lurking in the shadows that could be even worse than coronavirus and these other pandemics. I quit. You 2020. According to the science, antibiotic resistance could start killing 10 million people a year if not properly addressed by 2050. And it looks like we're already on that path. The CDC stated in its 2019 report that more than 2.8 million antibiotic-resistant infections occur in the US each year, and more than 35,000 people die as a result. And that's just in the US. The number that I've heard worldwide is closer to 700,000 already. And surprise, surprise, look at who's one of the main culprits here: animal agriculture. Antibiotics are given daily to most farm animals, and not necessarily because they're even fighting disease, but because the antibiotics help fatten them up. In 2014 alone, pharmaceutical companies sold almost 80% of all antibiotics, 21 million pounds of antibiotics for use in farm animals. That's 3 times the amount of antibiotics that are sold for use in people. And the problem is when animals are kept in the environment that they're in, especially in these CAFOs, these factory farms, the germs spread so fast and then they mutate, and the antibiotics become ineffective. This could result in simple procedures that once were easily addressed by modern medicine now becoming potentially fatal, even including things like simple dental procedures. It does look like in recent years there's been a slight reduction of antibiotic use in farm animals, but apparently it's not near enough to really address this potential antibiotic resistance era and this increase in deaths that's on the horizon. And if the numbers are accurate, this is going to be much more of a threat than coronavirus. Now, if these were the only 2 reasons to live a vegan lifestyle, I still think it would make a pretty good case. I think the potential avoidance of future pandemics and this antibiotic resistance era with an increased number of deaths and avoiding those would be a pretty good idea. But if you take into consideration all of the other reasons to live a vegan lifestyle too, like how much better it is for the environment, how it's better for other human beings, including reducing our top killers like heart disease, and of course how much better it would be for animals, it seems like the case becomes overwhelming. And for me, these are all reasons why I decided to make that change and start living a vegan lifestyle. So if you're someone who wears masks or promotes wearing masks, or maybe even gets irritated when someone else isn't wearing a mask, there might be something else that you can do that would have a much greater impact on the prevention of future pandemics and disease outbreaks, and it all starts with your plate. Now, if you're looking to make these changes but you don't know where to get started, watch this video here where I go over everything that I think you should know before going vegan, and it's my How to Go Vegan for Beginners guide. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like it and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can keep up with all the future content. And until next time, stop looking at what you can't do and start looking at what you can do. Thanks.